In our 2016 special, we brought you a story from Newark, New Jersey, a city with policing problems so dire that it was and still is under a federal consent decree. It was reported by New Jersey Public Television's Michael Hill, who grew up in Newark.
No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace! No justice!
A protest in Newark against police brutality is nothing new. 49 years ago this week, New Jersey's most populated city burned in rebellion. Martial law was imposed and indelibly stained this city and those who lived through it, as I did in Newark's North Ward as an 8-year-old boy. I remember during that time my mother repeatedly warning us not to look out the window for fear of being shot, but I managed to sneak a peek or two from the second-floor window, and by looking out I could see military vehicles and troops with big guns rolling down 4th Street. Barbara King remembers the fear she had during the riots. She says little has changed.
We're still dying, but thank God people are still struggling.
4 years later, people are still struggling, as Michael Hill reports.
In 2014, a U.S. Department of Justice investigation revealed a pattern of Newark Police Division officers engaging in constitutional violations, and it deemed the Internal Affairs Unit unable to hold them accountable. The NPD has been under federal supervision since 2016. Today, the NPD is in the midst of a reform effort that can boast some success. So it was surprising to some in May of this year when this video was posted to Facebook.
Now more cops coming.
In the video, a man comes face to face with officers. A friend pulls him away. Officers follow. One pushes the man. The man shouts profanities as he and the officers come face to face again. No de-escalation as the new police training encourages. Watch this.
Hold up, brother! Straight up!
The police union president blamed the man for escalating the confrontation, and he defends the punch.
There's nothing in any use of force continuum, anybody's department policy on use of force that says you can't punch a person in a certain place.
Amal Sinha, executive director of the state ACLU, says the officer crossed the line.
People have a constitutional right to curse at police, and the solution there shouldn't be to use force against them.
The Essex County prosecutor is investigating the encounter. Meanwhile, accountability advocates such as Larry Ham say they're glad incidents like this one aren't so common anymore.
We still have some police brutality cases, but nowhere at the level it was before the Justice Department came in.
The mayor of Newark is Raz Baraka. He's the son of noted writer and civil rights advocate Amiri Baraka. In 2014, before he was elected, Raz Baraka was himself a protester demanding better policing. Now he's a big part of that effort.
We have come a long way fighting those things in our city.
Newark residents say they notice a change. This is 26-year-old Kyron Sillems.
No police, you gotta respect them right now.
Sillems says interactions with police are better. He credits city leadership.
Mayor, we gotta respect Raz Baraka. He's making a big difference right now.
Former New Jersey Attorney General Peter Harvey leads the federal courts team monitoring the overhaul of the division, from use of force training to use of body cameras.
This department today is miles ahead of where it was when we began this consent decree process. Frankly, it's miles ahead of where it was when the Department of Justice released its report.
Police say citizen complaints and civil judgment payouts have plummeted. They post complaint descriptions and disciplinary actions online. Now, officers and supervisors file excessive force complaints against other officers, something almost unheard of in most police departments.
Today, unlike then, we have a number of complaints that are initiated by the department, by the department itself. And then officers are disciplined today for those types of complaints, which just was not happening at all back then.
What's happening in Newark exemplifies how to force change, says the independent federal monitor, Peter Harvey.
It is very difficult, given the strength of many police unions, to muster that kind of political will among city councils and a mayor. It's very difficult. But a consent decree, a court order, can require it.
The consent decree mandates civilian oversight of the Newark Police Division. The city came up with a civilian complaint review board, but in 4 years, it has not heard a single case because the local police union is challenging it in court. And the case has gone all the way to the state Supreme Court. Among the union's claims in this virtual state Supreme Court hearing, Newark illegally gave the board subpoena powers.
I'd submit the ordinance as written is quite simply unlawful and unenforceable.
The state Supreme Court is expected to rule any day. Mayor Baraka hopes George Floyd's killing and coast-to-coast calls for change will influence the New Jersey Supreme Court's decision. At this rally, he urged protesters to send the court the George Floyd video.
Send him the video of Floyd on his stomach, saying, "I can't breathe. They're going to kill me." Send them that video, and hopefully they have a conscience to vote for a civilian complaint review board, because the police can't police themselves.
In the summer of 1967, Newark residents rebelled against the racism, the poverty, the unaccountable policing they had experienced for years. It began when 2 white police officers beat up Cabby John Smith and took him to the 17th Avenue precinct. Witnesses say police in riot gear charged a peaceful demonstration outside, pushing reform and accountability demanding residents and protesters over the edge. 5 days of rioting followed years of cries for accountable policing. The rebellion ravaged retail and residential neighborhoods. This is Springfield Avenue today in the Central Ward.
This 3-story house is the only structure on this block at 16th Street and Springfield Avenue here in Newark. It and the abandoned field around it serve as symbols of just how challenging it is to attract investment to rebuild in a place like Newark, a place that burned 53 years ago in the '67 rebellion. There are many more like this, and because of those facts, for the generation that lived through that period, this is a stark reminder.
When the rebellion exploded, my family, we literally watched things happen from my second floor porch.
Larry Ham took us to another neighborhood, back to his old neighborhood with just one building left on the block. The dry cleaners where his mother had worked is now a church. Ham began organizing protests at 17. As the chairman of the People's Organization for Progress, he organized this year's May 30th protest while other cities were burning. His march placed the mayor behind the lead banner and delivered a message to the world.
I don't think people want to see Newark burnt down again. That's pretty clear to me when I talk to people. You know, that's why I was so glad when we had that demonstration of, according to the New York Times, 12,000 people on May 30th. It turned out without incident, without vandalism, without violence. And the narrative the next day was exactly what we wanted. Thousands gathered to demand justice for George Floyd.
Statistics show 25% of the calls to Newark police are non-police related. So in answering one national protest demand, Newark plans to shift 5% or more than $11 million from the public safety budget to bolster community programs, such as this one, training police and others in the community about trauma-informed responses to violence.
I see a real gap in understanding the use of trauma as a frame of analysis for getting past this us versus them with police and community. I think that by understanding trauma on both sides, transformation's possible.
The reappropriation would build on the police department hiring 3 social workers in 2016 and expand the city partnering with organizations like the Newark Community Street Team. It does conflict resolution and much more, such as holding public safety roundtables.
It's essentially about holding law enforcement, elected officials, those who get funding to provide services in our community accountable. We're about putting the public back into public safety.
Stop police brutality!
The street team is a member of the peace initiative that the mayor deployed in the recent Justice for George Floyd march. The Baraka administration insisted police keep a low profile, no battle line of officers in riot gear, no repeat of '67. Time may answer the question for Newark and the nation. Is this a moment or a movement?